Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second, or third, I don't know, episode of Review All Monsters.
Well, I mean, if you want to get technical, this is the first official episode, Raf.
Well, yes, we had a pilot, and the other one was my thoughts on Shin Godzilla, but yeah.
Which does not count.
It always counts, baby, because it's me.
That's a special episode.
It counts to me, man. It's still real to me.
Who are you?
Oh, Jesse, I want you to meet our third co-host, and occasional co-host to me and me alone, Andres Perez, also known as KaijuNoir. Introduce yourself to the world.
Hello, people of the internet. How you doing today? Of course you can reply because it's a video, a non-interact piece of media.
Well, I mean, you could reply, it's just that we may not answer. We also don't have an email set up that you can easily contact us at, and that'd be internet stalking if you did go out of your way.
Nor a Patreon account where you can give us money.
Alright, I get it. It's a hodgepodge operation I'm running here, okay?
What, is your guilt getting to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so, first episode
I've killed so many orphans to get here. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud, was I?
So many orphans, so many hookers.
Yeah, exactly.
So much blow.
It's just like the story of Peter Gruber and Sony Entertainment.
This is why you just kill unicorns, for the love of Christ.
Oh, you know I wouldn't do that.
I was framed, I tell you.
Exactly! Top of the world, Ma! So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know already, Review All Monsters is a podcast series started by the one and only
probably
Enshohma.
don't know.
That's why I'm explaining it again. By the way, do we call you Jesse or Burkion?
I don't care.
Okay, Burkus.
I'll just call you Jesse. I'll just try to call you Jesse in my best attempt at a Heisenberg voice.
Sure.
Jesse, it's time to review.
This is a very serious show, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I don't think it is, Andres. I don't think it is. Anyways, as Raf keeps trying to say, this is the very first official episode of Review All Monsters, a project that we jointly came up with, mostly because Raf decided, hey, we should make a podcast where we review Godzilla movies, and then I thought, hey, how about we just review all of the monster movies?
And then it just went from hell from there.
Went to hell, but yes.
Thank you. God damn it, this show of mine.
You came up with it!
Oh man, this is what I get for taking a bunch of Quaaludes before we start the show.
I'm not sure you want that legally on the record.
You're right, okay. Cocaine, there, that's much more family wholesome.
Well, you're in California.
Much better.
Definitely, cocaine's like...
What drug of choice is over in Japan?
I don't really know. That sort of thing just kind of stays within the Yakuza gang world and doesn't really fall into the public.
You are a disappointment.
Don't blame me, it's Japan. They don't let any of the fun stuff come out to, for the rest of everybody to enjoy.
Chop a finger off! Join the Yakuza!
All the guns, all the swords, all the drugs, all the women, that's all the Yakuza, they're actually responsible enough to keep that shit on the down low.
That would explain why we only had one Yakuza guy in Gamma vs. Baragon. I'm sad now. So, thanks to Jesse, we are reviewing all sorts of movies with heavy giant monster elements, whether the giant monsters are major characters in the narrative or the movie itself just happens to have tons of them. Let's do some introductions. Gentlemen, who wants to go first?
I'll let Jesse go first.
Okay, Jesse, you go first.
Hello, I'm Jesse. I live in Tennessee for some unforsaken reason. This is my stupid idea.
You're welcome.
No, I don't think anyone is welcome.
Oh, tell me about it. Because of you, I spent way too much time on a freaking huge list that terrifies me still.
You kept trying to add really stupid movies.
I got lost in the miasma of it all, okay?
Yeah! And you still forgot some. I had to point them out to you.
Hey, Andres, you want to introduce yourself next?
Okay, so I am Andres Perez, aka KaijuNoir. I review movies on YouTube, usually movies, TV shows, comic books, so trying to get into reviewing novels at some point. And I also do a lot of podcasts / interviews with a variety of different talented people, including the host of today's show, Enshohma. We've done a couple videos together in the past. And so I've just been going going on 5 years strong, and currently reaching over almost at 1,000 subscribers. So I'm doing pretty well for myself. I'm also a film major, an aspiring film journalist, and currently a English conversation teacher in Japan.
Now that's an introduction, Jesse. None of this quick southern wit of yours, my Tennessean friend. Ha ha!
Is that an insult to me, or is that a compliment to me?
A backhanded compliment. The best kind of compliment and insult when they get together and make a little backhanded compliment, child.
So you lost the thread on that one.
Yes,
okay.
I did. But I recovered. That's all that matters.
Andres, I don't think he recovered.
Where is Filthy Frank when you need him with that giant clock to say, "It's time to stop"?
Yeah. So, what was the first ever giant monster movie? No, it's not The Lost World.
Or The Haunted House, apparently.
That's not a real monster movie!
We'll get to that when we get to it. Later. Never.
No, we won't!
Maybe.
Again, bring up that guy from that one WWE event. It's still real to me, damn it!
Alright, so the first giant monster film, or at least the first film to feature a significant giant monster element within.
More than one.
Right. Actually, that's a good point you bring up. The 1912 French silent film, directed by and starring the one and only Georges Méliès, Conquest of the Pole, or La Conquête du Pole.
Also known as a bunch of racist stereotypes go off and have an adventure.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
While giving the finger to feminists.
It is literally all this movie is.
You know, here I was going into this movie thinking it was going to be like one of those quaint little fantasy stuff that Georges Méliès is well known for. and then the harsh satire came in droves.
So, one quick little thing here. We do not know what exactly was actually said, because for whatever reason, Raf could not find us a translated copy, even though I am dead certain those exist by now. And yet, because it is a silent film, and because of how obvious the imagery is, the only thing we cannot be certain of is just how sexist and or racist the movie really was. But we are aware that it was.
And yet, in hindsight, it was not as bad as other movies we'll be reviewing eventually, and unfortunately soon, I might add.
We'll be getting to King Kong and Lost World very soon.
I'll give King Kong a free pass, because at least those were real people of the African-American variety. Oh.
We'll be getting to it soon!
Yeah.
It's like, hey guys, we got authentic black people this time!
Gee, put him in the picture, boys!
Oh.
Just round out every single. Oh man, I'm not even gonna. Do
yeah,
that.
don't please.
I was gonna use a horribly racist comment just to get into character.
Right. So
yeah,
just round them all up, fellas. Just find anyone that you can see on the streets.
Look. We'll be getting to that soon enough. Right now, we have plenty of other very terrible racist stereotypes.
Yeah.
I kind of there was 3 or 4? There was random Chinese guy who was just in and out.
I didn't know he was Chinese until I read the summary on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I did not recognize he was meant to be Chinese until about 20 minutes into the movie.
It's like their stereotypes are so bad you can't even tell they're stereotypes.
We have the Mexican guy. For the record, we're now talking about the cast of the movie.
Yes.
Wait, before we go any further, though, I think we should do a plot synopsis of what the heck this movie is about.
I did!
Oh, you did?
No. We just made criticisms of it.
Yeah,
That's pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
Anyways, what the fuck happened, Raf?
Thank you, Andres. I'll try to bleep that out in post. Actually, I'm just gonna read the plot synopsis off Wikipedia.
Okay, no. Here's the plot synopsis.
Thank you, Jesse. We'd be here all day.
Jesus Christ, we are not if people want us to read Wikipedia, they can just read Wikipedia.
It's a 3-paragraph summary.
I don't care.
Okay, it's not my fault all the versions of Conquest of the Pole that's on YouTube are in French, okay?
Okay, here's the thing. A bunch of rich assholes decide to build a plane,
all people across the world decide we're going to have a race to see who gets to the North Pole. I'm assuming it's the North Pole.
Yes.
Could be the South Pole, I don't care. We're going to go to the North Pole. We're going to see who can get there first by some vehicle means. So we have one group of stereotypes decide to make a Gauss for some reason. One group of stereotypes decide, okay, we're going to make a Zeppelin, because Zeppelins have never failed. One group of stereotypes decide to take a car. I don't know why. And what was... Oh, yeah.
The suffragette.
Well, no, wasn't there a helicopter, too?
I don't think there was.
I thought there was a helicopter. So each of these groups of stereotypes and just nationalistic nonsense make their own vehicles. All but two of them fail. Of course, our main characters, I'm presuming they're meant to be the main characters, they take off in the giant Gauss ship. I still don't know why they made a Gauss.
Because Gausses are awesome.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, just to clarify, ladies and gentlemen, what he means by Gauss ship, the lead airplane of this film is made in the image of a giant eagle. There's a big difference between reptilian bats and giant arrowbirds.
Not when they're made into the shape of a plane. Regardless. So we follow our main characters as the others all die off into the sky as they interact with some very weird things.
Now, I do want to bring up that little tidbit you just brought up. There is this really neat little montage or image of all these different planes flying through the sky. And most of those planes that you see are fantastical and wacky designs, but they're based on real planes from the era. To such a point that you've probably seen footage of all these different planes trying to work and failing disastrously so. And at one point, we see the Wright brothers plane. It seems to be the only one flying majestically. And then for some reason, it blows up. For no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. There's a reason.
Yeah.
France.
In a way, the designs of all these planes kind of remind me of the last Hayao Miyazaki movie, The Wind Rises.
That's a good comparison. You don't think Hayao Miyazaki was inspired by George Méliès there?
The whole point was he was making like a movie based on a plane designer, a World War II plane designer, and that guy was inspired by another plane designer, a real life plane designer who always came up with these fantastical looking designs.
Ah.
And I think maybe it was through these fantastical designs that what also could have led to the inspiration behind these planes. Which I will look into who that guy was.
Yeah, although, again, to be fair, a lot of these planes, they were real. They were real prototypes. They never got off the ground. Many of them were just disasters to such a point.
Just like the planes of that one guy.
Yeah, you really have to question whether or not the people back in the early 1900s made these planes honestly thinking that they would fly, or it was just a publicity stunt knowing they wouldn't fly, but hey, let's just do something silly for the cameras.
Right. And the guy was the famous Italian aircraft designer Giovanni Battista Caproni.
Ah, now there's a name I'm not going to say.
Oh, Giovanni. Always trying to steal Ash's Pokemon.
Oh, those
with his sky types.
Someone had to do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. It's like we know that when it comes to the French people and anime, they are mortal enemies.
I don't think that's true.
Oui.
Regardless.
Except George Descent from G Gundam.
Look, we have enough national stereotypes here. We don't need to bring in G Gundam.
Yeah.
Or do we?
We are covered. Regardless, our French protagonists interact with personifications of stars and zodiac signs for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure most of them were, but I honestly, for the life of me, I do not know what some of them were. But you know what? It doesn't really matter.
We'll get to the star constellations later.
We'll get back to them.
Yes, during the monster segment. But keep going, Jesse.
Yes. So they land, and almost immediately everything that could go wrong goes wrong when out of nowhere an ice giant appears.
You forgot to mention the fact that they crash land in the North Pole or South Pole or wherever the hell they are. And then they wonder about the icy set, and then we meet the ice giant, or his official name, the Giant of the Snows.
The ice giant?
Screw you.
No! You've not bought me any dinner.
You're right. After this podcast, I'll make it right.
Yeah?
He'll order pizza for you.
Oh, please. I'm a much, much classier date than that. Regardless. So they immediately run afoul an ice giant of all things, which then just eats one or two of them, until they just, for some reason they brought a cannon. I don't know why. But they brought a cannon, they kill the ice giant, it throws up their friend, and then they run afoul of the North Pole itself, which is apparently sentient and hates them. Yes, apparently I know it's magnetized.
Yeah.
I know it's magnetized. That's not as funny. So the sentient magnetized North Pole tries to drown them until it just stops doing that because ladders. Apparently you can just climb away from magnetic poles. Who knew? Because then another group shows up and they pretty much just save the day.
In a Zeppelin, I believe, too. Irony.
Yeah. Isn't that a different Zeppelin? Were there two?
I think you're right. Oh my goodness. This for a 30-minute film, it's just a hodgepodge of characters.
Oh, also, suffrage movement people, ladies, are evil and wrong and will be ridiculed at all steps of the movie.
Yeah, how dare women want to try to fly?
Yeah, next thing you know, they're going to be asking for the ability to vote.
Yeah.
Oh.
Next, also, after they get decent representation in video games.
Oh, exactly.
After they get Jesus Christ.
Yeah, or before you know it, the women want to participate in the Great Race with Jack Lemmon. Oh my goodness, what is this world coming to?
Raph, not everything goes back to the Great Race.
It's a good movie.
If you wanted to make the reference, you should have done it when it was an actual race. The race portion of the movie is over.
You know, now they mention it for a movie called The Great Race, there isn't that much car racing in it.
Anyways.
Regardless, after they get rescued, for the record, the North Pole inexplicably fills up with Disney animated animal life. Out of nowhere.
It was a different era back then.
Yeah, apparently if white people show up on your lands pretending to be other races, all the animals just screw off.
Well, I was going to say it's the age of no reason whatsoever in your narrative artwork, but sure.
Oh no, there is reason. It's just very abstract and actual art terms and crap. But what do you want to do? Do you want to discuss actual art and the artistic merit of this film? Or do you just want to make fun of a bunch of stuff from the 1912s?
We can do both. That's the great thing about this movie. There's some things I generally love about it as far as visual and artistic merit goes. But at the same time, you're right. There's a lot of stereotypes. But here's the thing I wanted to mention earlier. It's the worst kind of stereotypes. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were doing it for comedic, cartoonish effect.
I have a question.
Go on, but first let me just say, this movie really does feel like the 1912 equivalent of, like, the more bizarre and zany Looney Tune entries.
Or something, or like an aerial version of the Wacky Races.
I think you hit it on the nail right there.
A little more artistic in merit, but yes.
Okay, but what's your question, Jesse?
When was the book made?
Book?
The book this movie is based on.
This is based on a book?
Yes!
Everything's based on a book, Raf.
Holy crap. Okay. Oh, hold on. The film, okay, it's loosely inspired by Jules Verne's Voyages Extraordinaires. I'm going to find out the year for that soon. Voyages Extraordinaires. Again, ladies and gentlemen, my French. It sucks.
You can just say Extraordinary Voyages.
It was published in 1863, although it was given an official novelization. It probably started out as a series of short stories that were finally collected in 1905. This movie was made in 1912.
That's interesting. One thing I will say about this movie, like being actually serious for a second here.
Okay.
This movie is very interesting to see just because they did a lot of special effects for the era.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of special effects that required a lot more timing than they really do nowadays. Or even than they would require just some 20 years later. Because you have all of the stuff with the rear projection and having to time up that footage with the footage that was going on in front of it, which was not easy to get.
Not to mention a large usage of cardboard flats that are actually well done in some regards.
Yes. Visually, this movie is very, very interesting to watch. Some of the content has not aged very well.
Like those suffragettes.
But
although what's really funny is that the suffragettes kind of feels like a modern day problem nowadays.
Yeah, it does.
But although it's kind of like an opposite effect because, like, back then women, they were trying to go for, like, basic human rights to be treated as equals. Nowadays, the modern third wave feminism has kind of gotten a very bad reputation in terms of, like, kind of like the extreme side of the feminists where they kind of seem to get outraged over non-issues, in my opinion. Looking at these women trying to stir up trouble in the movie, I can't help but think of the real-life happenings of today.
A lot of that just stems from second-wave feminism and how that was very, very complicated.
Yeah. To be fair, though, we should not forget that this movie is almost Monty Python-ish in the sense that everyone gets offended. It's like, I don't even think the French really get out of this okay, because notice that during one scene where they go to see the creation of the Aerobus, that's the actual name of the Gauss ship that my friends have been quoting this whole time. The French representative of the expedition starts flirting with one of the ladies working on the airplane wings, to such a point that he even starts kind of lightly groping her. So again, this movie really does come off like offend everybody cartoon physics.
Yeah, where it's like not giving a single damn about anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that was meant to offend anybody. I think that was just meant to be funny.
Well, that's what I meant about, comparing this to a Looney Tunes cartoon. It's like, yeah, there's a bunch of stereotypes in here, but it's all done for, like, relatively innocent laughs.
Also, apparently in France, Japan is written Japan. That is an interesting thing to me. But I'm actually curious, is that how Japan is pronounced in France? Is it pronounced Japan?
I don't know. Other guy. Andres, you're smarter than the both of us.
Huh? What?
You.
Me?
Yeah, you're in Japan doing language classes. Do you have any idea how Japan is said in France?
You're asking an American Mexican in Japan what the French say.
Well, it's not even what they say, because obviously we did not hear their pronunciation. For many reasons. That should be very obvious.
And I'm looking at just a quick search on Google Translate, and it's, let's see, Japun.
How's it spelled in French? Like, is it spelled Japon?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that's how France spelled it.
Because they're weird like that.
I can reconfirm it on my end. That's how it's going to.
Okay. That is very interesting. At first I thought that they were making fun of it, or they were trying to obscure what the country was actually supposed to be, which would have been a very stupid thing considering how they had the Japanese guy dressed. But no, that's just how France does it. Okay, that's fine. France, you win this round.
Yeah.
This movie has a lot of imagination. It's very expressionistic, it's very, very absurdist, and it's very abstract.
I think those two words is the best way to sum up just the whole feel of the movie. Absurdist and abstract. So, which means a lot of logical narrative just goes out of the door in some scenes.
To be fair, this is a very short film.
Yeah, it's only, it's just over 30 minutes long. 31 minutes. And I was also going to say George Méliès, George Méliès.
Méliès?
Méliès, thank you. That's why I got the co-hosts to help me out. I'm not the best speaker here.
I learned a lot about him in school.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, not too bad. I've seen a lot of his other short films.
I'm joking!
Yes, we get it. I've seen a lot of his other short films, and there is that kind of wonderful, absurd abstractness to them, as you were mentioned earlier.
Would this film count as German Expressionism? Like an example of German?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's just wacky.
German.
The style is not right for German Expressionism.
Okay.
German films have very, very different kind of style. You can see, amusingly enough, you can actually see it more prevalent in American cinema in the 30s.
Oh, like the film noir genre.
Sort of. But more specifically, the, not Hammer Horror, but the Universal horror monsters borrowed a lot from German Expressionism and German film styles. At least the early ones did. As they went along, they kind of stopped caring, which is, Hollywood in a nutshell. But, whatever. But yeah, this is a very, very unique film. It's worth watching just because it is such an early film, and it's such an early film with such a strong... As much as I make fun of the narrative, it has a very strong narrative. Even without being able to understand any of the dialogue given, you can still understand just about everything fine, which is a strength of silent films in general.
I'm happy that despite the fact that the word balloons were in French, it really didn't matter in the end, huh?
Well, no. That's the beauty of silent films. You're not going to have very many plot twists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, for the most part.
Yeah, well, but there's Buster Keaton movies. Those got plenty of twists in them.
That's not the same, and you know it.
Yeah, you're right.
That's not what I'm talking about. The more advanced... That's a very hard way to describe it, but film at this point was still very much in its infancy. This is one of the most complex movies of its time. Because just 2 years before then, we had the Edison Frankenstein film, which was one of the most complex films of its time. And that was only about, 15 minutes? So, cinema was already advancing by leaps and bounds. It was evolving as time went on. Because, again, the time between the Edison film and this one was only 2 years, and this is incredibly advanced in every single way compared to the Edison Frankenstein.
You know, now thinking about it, I think the Edison Frankenstein is even shorter than 15 minutes. Let me double check that.
It probably is.
In a way, it's kind of very ambitious, where this movie tries to set up this big, grand voyage. And this was before movies started becoming, growing to the, modern-day feature-length productions.
Yes.
We still have movies like, Nosferatu, The Lost World, Metropolis. A lot of them are considered like full-length movies.
Yes.
But in this time period, we're still not at that level yet. So for them to try to pull off as much as they could within a small time frame is very impressive for the time, on a technological level.
A quick aside, the Edison Frankenstein film is actually 16 minutes long.
Okay.
16. I figured it was around 15.
Okay, and here I was thinking it was even shorter than that, 6 minutes.
No. Basically, a huge thing to keep in mind is that we talked about German expressionist films. The first one was, of course, Student of Prague, but the one that really started it all, for the record, Student of Prague was only 1913. That was a year after this film. That's why I say this movie probably inspired several... I cannot say this explicitly, because I do not personally know, but I would not be surprised if this film helped inspire that movement in Germany, especially because Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which me and Andres were talking about earlier, before we started recording, was made 8 years after this film, and it was the thing that really kicked off everything. It was the one that kicked off just about everything from Germany that we know today. The Golem, Nosferatu, Metropolis, everything can be drawn back to the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and its success, and how people responded to it.
Do you believe that, with that said, Georges Méliès, almost all his short films were a big inspiration that led to Caligari and beyond?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if all of his films were, but I would not be surprised if a number of them were, because he was doing very, very experimental things that visually could not be matched at the time.
That is true.
We'll be getting to the puppet done for the Ice Giant soon. That is something I actually do want to talk about.
Despite all the mockery we gave this movie at the beginning of this podcast, you really do have to respect this film on a production level, and just the visual effects too.
Yes.
It's and again, this is 1912. This isn't... I know CGI can be very difficult in its own right, but the fact that this was all physical effects, and a lot of this was on the stage timing, and magic tricks that were done right in front of the camera, it really is a lot more impressive than, in a sense, than some of the special effects we'd be getting even in the 60s and the 50s, if that made any sense whatsoever.
That's actually very hard to say. Special effects are never easy. The only, movies with ambitious special effects are always difficult. It does not matter what kind of special effects they are. What can be respected here is that this is a film made still in film, cinema's infancy, that tells such a grand and epic adventure.
In 31 minutes.
well, yes, actually the length of the film is fairly impressive for 1912.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. And there's nothing wrong with a short film too, especially now that we're living in the day and age of 2 hours and a half.
Well, you can't really criticize movies about length that long just because Metropolis was a thing.
Oh no, I'm actually saying the short length of the movie actually works in its benefit.
No, I mean, like, films have been that long since the 20s. Ever since we were able to make films that long, they have been that long. In fact, how long was, what's it called, Andres? What's it called? It's Birth of a Nation.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that is a long one.
The one that the one that tried to introduce many cinematic techniques that are still being utilized today.
It's basically the first modern film. Effectively, it is the first... Okay, yeah. 1915, Birth of a Nation, which is not a great story.
Yeah, it has problems.
What are you talking about, man?
We're not...
That stuff's my bread and butter.
I'm sure it's someone's bread and butter.
Anyways, I got it on the Criterion Collection Blu-ray for it.
That probably exists, but that's only because of how important it is.
Criterion will release any crap. Just look at the X from Outer Space, for crying out loud. I'm not joking, ladies and gentlemen. The X from Outer Space...
Technically, it's
X
not
from
like
Outer
a
Space
full-on
deserves
thing.
a Criterion release. The Birth of a Nation is for lack of a better word, it is the birth of modern cinema. It introduced film techniques that, as Andres said, is still in use today, and is just a very important made movie. And it was 3 hours and 13 minutes long. So, I honestly would not be so quick to rag on Hollywood for long movies nowadays. Because that's literally been a thing since, 100 years.
Even though I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry, Birth of a Nation is 12 reels, usually going from 133 minutes to 193 minutes.
Yeah, 3 hours and 13 minutes long.
Yeah, but that's pretty long.
Yeah, that's because... And Metropolis is... Well, how long's the uncut version of Metropolis? Let's see here.
Go ahead, check it out, man.
Let's see here. 1927? 2 hours and 33 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And that was 1927. Though, of course, Metropolis was made at an interesting time where it was made on the verge of basically sound pictures, basically. But Metropolis is just this whole other beast of a film that is just... Oh man, that is just something to talk about.
Yeah, it's, sadly it has no real giant monster elements whatsoever other than a dream sequence, and that barely counts. But yeah, that would be a great movie to talk about. So
yeah, but for as impressive as that is, that's 1927 and this is 1912. And yet it cannot be overstated how quickly and how much the film industry evolved. Because, again, we went from a 15-minute film in 1910 with Edison's Frankenstein to this 35-minute film in 1912 to the 3-hour film Birth of a Nation just 3 years after this one. Technology and just everything advanced in leaps and bounds. And this is a very tumultuous period in film history. And yet this movie, just due to the sheer breadth of its imagination and everything, its style, really does stand out.
That's a really good way to put it. So, with that said, though, did you guys like the movie, or no?
It's kind of a little difficult for me to try to watch a movie that's, very far and, I guess, very detached from the type of movies that I grew up with, even as someone who enjoys watching older films. Being that this is not the fact that it's black and white, but more so that this is a shorter film format. This is a silent film. This is also this is a foreign film. It's filled with it's a product of its time. There are many references which flew over my head when I first watched the film. So in a way, it's kind of, there's a little bit of difficulty for me to actually enjoy the film because of this large dissonance, this a large gap between who this film was intended for and the type of person that I am and the time period that I am currently living in now. But even still, I think while the story itself, it's not like I'm all that crazy about, because again, since then we've had hundreds of movies that would feature ragtag group of explorers going off on a fantastical journey. This one definitely feels very prototypey. But even still, I can, as a film major or as a film graduate, I can appreciate this movie and enjoy this movie on a technical level at least.
I'm gonna have to share a lot of your opinions there because, again, like Jesse pointed out and like you pointed out, technically this movie and visually this movie is fantastic, but the simplicity of the story does alienate people like us of the modern era. I'm a true
large
artist.
dissociation.
Yeah, dissociation. That's a good way to put it. I'm an artist, so I'm getting a lot more of the movie out of the movie than most people would. But yeah, you're right. It's like, on one hand, I respect the movie a lot, and it's definitely one to bring up and reference. But at the same time, I think there has been much better fantasy adventure movies spawned from this original attempt, as well as, like as Jesse mentioned, a lot of really good silent movies that are probably even better than this. Metropolis, for example, and of course we can even point to some of the older comedies, since they were nowhere near as visually insane as Conquest of the Pole, but they definitely had stronger stories and characterization. Especially like Harold Lloyd, for example, really added some good characters in his films. But yeah, that's all I can say about the movie. It's like, it's not a great movie, but it is an important movie, and I do respect it immensely for that. I just don't personally like it, without sounding too much like a backhanded compliment.
This is a movie that is good to watch, but is not one that you're necessarily going to enjoy.
That's a very good way to put it.
If you have any interest in the history of film, this is a good movie to see, even though you probably will not enjoy it, either because of the content or lack thereof, or just if the film does not mesh with your style. Like, if the racism, and it is racism, that cannot be overstated. Racism and sexism, just really, really bad. But if that does genuinely bother you, you will not enjoy this film, but you can appreciate it for what it is and what it will always be, because this movie is over 100 years old. This is an old movie, and it has earned its place in history for a reason. There's a reason why we talk about this movie, because it is important. So, I enjoyed it more than I didn't. That's about what I can say.
Actually, I think you summed it up. It's not a bad movie, but it's not exactly my cup of tea either. For me, it's like I would enjoy The Lost World a lot more than this movie, only because something like that is my cup of tea, my bread and butter. It's interesting you say that. I've never really sat down and given The Lost World a proper watch, so when we get to that...
Why?
I'm more of a King Kong man, I'm sorry.
So you should love this...
I bet you've never seen Creation, haven't you?
You fool, it's never been made.
Part of it was made.
Yeah.
Nothing important was made.
Jesse Alonso's thought on the history of Hollywood.
Nothing important was made.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're probably right. So, you know, I will say this though. I do like the movie just in its comedy sense, because it is a very satirical farce. But I think the visuals and the special effects is what really makes the movie worth a damn. Its true merits in the end.
Also, the reason why we're watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
Giant monsters.
That you're segueing there, I see.
Yes, this is where you take the segue, Raf.
Yes, okay. I'm taking the segue.
Ride it. Like
Right.
Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Shut up. That's a
Right.
Or rather, you ride it
segue.
like a dolphin.
Yeah, does that count as a giant monster movie? Because, you know, the title character.
Well, Kevin Smith is Kevin Smith. Kevin
Kevin
what was that
James.
actor's name?
Yes, Kevin
James.
Smith, star of Paul Blart.
Kevin James is certainly quite a rather terrifying idea.
Oh, man.
He's a terrifying creation of man.
I love that part in Paul Blart where he battles Mothra. That's a great part in the movie.
I like it in Paul Blart where they go to a donkey show.
Okay, that's a Kevin Smith movie, man.
I'm making a joke
I
based
know.
on my earlier joke.
Oh, yeah.
See, this is why your jokes don't work, Jesse. You take them too seriously for us to not pick them up as jokes.
That or you're dealing with
I
me.
cannot help it. You cannot tell humor.
Yeah, especially me.
I know humor. I come from a podcast that has nothing but sarcastic insults.
And yet you're not as sarcastic as me. Get on my level.
Hey, guys, remember when Rodan was in Dogma?
You see, that I can tell because I can tell he's making a joke because he's acting very silly.
That's not how sarcasm works.
Oh, really?
Okay. Alright, I'm taking my show back. Shut up, you two. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now
Your
this is the
show.
part of the episode, usually we save for the end, where we go over the film's monsters and talk about them. This film is usually known for the giants of the...
format. This is our first review.
Well, that's how it's going to be, for I say so.
Yeah, we'll see how that works.
Yes, because I got two such wonderful co-hosts with me. It's going to work out great. Not. Maybe. Don't know yet. Okay, so this is a part of the episode where we talk about the film's various monsters, and Conquest of the Pole is most famous image. Its most famous image is that of the Giant of the Snows, who is basically a gigantic denizen of the title location. But
It's an ice giant.
yeah, it's
A frost giant.
his name is the Giant of the Snows. All right, that's his name. Let's stick. Actually, that's really hard to say. Let's just call him an ice giant. All right. Anyway,
I win!
yes. But with that said, rewatching this movie, because I remember I did see it a long time ago, but now rewatching it with actual now watching with more perceptive eyes, I didn't realize this movie's chock full of fantastical creatures in them, even if they're just really just sight gags and cameos at that.
Well, some of the constellation creatures veer more in... Like, the constellations are the entire reason why they get knocked out of the sky.
Good old Scorpio, right?
Yeah. That's just straight up a giant monster.
Yeah, for those who have not seen the film, while our heroes are making their trip to the North Pole by the Aerobus, the bird plane, they pass by a wide variety of living planets and constellations. The most common of them, and something you see a lot in George Méliès's works, are these celestial bodies, literally, because they're women. See what I did there? No?
Just go ahead.
Okay, anyways, these star babes, as star ladies as we should call them, or I should call them.
That's, according to the third wave feminists, that's sexist, Raf. How dare you be you're objectifying women?
Andres, this is Conquest of the Pole. Try to do it in a 1912 suffragette type voice.
I would need text for that.
Right. Oh my, I am offended by this.
Raph, that's not what they sounded like. You know what they sounded like?
Tell us.
Here's how they sounded.
with a little piano in the background.
If the theater was important enough to get a piano. Okay.
You're brilliant.
Anyways.
Yeah, okay, so these star ladies, celestial ladies, this is actually...
the constellations!
Girls. This is actually kind of a recurring visual joke that goes on in a lot of George Méliès's work. In fact, there were star ladies in Trip to the Moon and other Méliès movies that I can't think of the titles off the top of my head. But with the aerobus flying right past them or near them, I didn't realize how huge these star ladies are. And then, of course, there's the laughing Saturn, which is probably one of the most disturbing things in this whole movie. If you thought the moon with a face and a trip of the moon was scary, the laughing Saturn is a little creepier. And it's just a still image of Saturn with a giant ha-ha-ha face passing by. Then there's the constellations themselves, although the only one that sticks out of my mind at the moment is Scorpio itself, which is literally just a giant scorpion in the sky with little stars attached.
Yep.
And yet it's not big. It's almost slightly bigger than the aerobus itself, but not a massive star constellation as it should be. And then, of course,
Bird-Eye Gordon would be proud.
Yes, Bird-Eye Gordon would be proud. And then, of course, there's the climactic giant of the snows, or ice giant, since it's a lot easier to say, who is portrayed through a gigantic...
The cold fellow.
Oh, by the time this podcast is over, he's going to have like 1 billion names. So, Frankie Foster, Frosty Freeze. Frankie Foster, Frosty Freeze. Try say that 8 times fast.
You can't say it once!
Correction, I can't say it twice.
The chill dude.
Regardless, it is presented as a gigantic marionette.
Yeah, actually, you hit it on the nail, dear sir. It is a giant marionette.
And it is genuinely impressive for the time period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with that says, though, how do you guys feel about the design? Because it's not... When usually people do ice giants these days, they always go for like a gorilla yeti or a giant elemental creature made of ice.
People don't go for ice giants these days.
No, do you remember the first Thor movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just the blue skin guys. There's also Cabin Boy,
the slightly taller than average blue skin guys.
Yeah, but then there was also the 90s comedy Cabin Boy with the stop motion ice monster. And then, of course, there's tons of television shows where whenever an ice monster shows up, it's usually a Yeti-type creature, even if the creature itself is supposed to be made completely of ice.
There's the snow monster from Frozen.
Yeah.
It's technically a frost giant.
Yeah. So, although with that says, we're not going to be reviewing Frozen on this show.
Thank God.
Just let it go, guys. Just let it go.
If only you were to take your own advice.
Yeah.
Please.
Puns are fun, but they're such punishing punishment.
No. No.
That's not very punny, Raf.
No.
Puns by the pound. Okay, I just killed this.
So anyways, the ice giant.
Okay, I was going to say, his design is actually more of a frostbitten human being, complete with an almost Finland-type style hat, and this part, I was actually surprised.
He's yet another racist stereotype. Let's just be entirely honest.
He's a big old Finnish man. With creepy skeleton hands, although I don't know if that was a deliberate design choice by the filmmakers, or if that was just the limitations of the special effects at the time.
Yes.
Which one?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just go with that. So,
and it's topped off with a nice, good old stovepipe.
Oh yeah, and even knowing this character again. This character very much matches the mood of the movie. It is a more comical, offbeat creature than it is terrifying, despite some terrifying habits this creature has. But at the same time, it is kind of creepy and freakish in its own right, despite the kind of droopy eyes, which...
I think it's the cross eyes that kind of terrified me the most.
Yeah. And with that said, Jesse, I can't tell if the cross eyes was a choice of the filmmakers or a limitation of special effects. What do you have to say?
Raf, you can't do that. You can't force the joke. That does not work. That's not how humor works.
Dude, it was a good joke. You could have just said yes, and we could have just kept going.
No!
Oh,
I refuse. My jokes are not a meme!
You're right, there's no pun worth in there.
That's not how... Andres, I don't think Raf knows what memes are.
I know what memes are. I'm not that old. That's where you kill the mammoth and cook it on the fryer, right? Because, it's mean to cook the mammoth, hence it's a memes.
So, about that ice giant.
Who wants to go next? I feel shameful right now.
You should.
I think we need to put Rap's jokes out of its misery. After all, it is a memes to an end.
No, stop shooting my jokes.
Now, that works better. Thank you, Andres.
We'll leave it at that. But no, I actually kind of like the Giant of the Snows. Because, again, his wacky offbeat design, which is clearly, again, a racist stereotype of a Finland man. Is it a Finn or a Finnish?
I'm not
Finnish.
Is that racist, or is that just... I don't know.
Okay.
Would that be considered?
In today's easily offended culture, everything is racist.
That is true. So, but no.
Yeah, unless it happens to a white guy anyways, but still.
I was gonna say, the fact that this ice giant, the Giant of the Snows, is portrayed more as a humanoid being, a literal fairy tale giant who's frostbitten, his design does stick out a lot more than many of the Yeti monsters we've had in giant monster films since.
Yeah, he has a lot of personality to him.
Yeah.
Mostly because of that pipe.
I also love the fact that after he gets defeated by our heroes, he puts his hands up in the air on top of his head like he's having a headache and goes away. So, yeah, they got a lot of mileage out of this single prop. What do you guys...
It's a really good marionette.
Yeah. Apparently not only was it a gigantic marionette, but it took 12 people to operate it.
Oh, wow, I would never have thought of that.
In other words, it was a much less complex marionette than everything else that's ever come since.
Gee, I can't imagine why that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be until the 60s, where Japan would decide to get very complicated with their own puppeteering monsters.
Yeah. Well, the main thing with it, this is something that you would find on certain plays. Because again, a lot of this film is a lot like a play would be.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the style of the film. And this monster really does exemplify that. But it does also show off a lot of things that would be more common. Like, this is the first cinematic giant monster. And it acts like it. There's a reason why we had this be the film.
Mm-hmm.
While it looks more like a traditional giant, but frostbitten, he does not act like a person. He acts like a monster. He attacks our heroes for no good reason, and he is completely immune to conventional weaponry.
Yeah, a cannon and snowballs, which, as we know, was used to kill off the first Godzilla. I'm sorry, I'll stop with the jokes here.
See, right now we're trying to be in serious discuss the actual monster mode, Raf.
I know. Keep going. Let's just pretend I'm not talking.
Well, I do that anyways. Regardless, specifically, it's the cannon does begin to work, but I would not consider that conventional for the time period, or any time period, because it's a cannon. No, what I mean by conventional is the fact that they have rifles and shotguns, but they do nothing to the giant except for piss it off when they destroy its pipe. That's what provokes it into eating one of them. And the fact that they were able to do all of this clearly in one take, because editing was a lot more obvious back in the day.
Especially when you don't cut away to another shot. Instead, it's still they cut to the same. They perform jump cuts during the same shot.
Yes. Again, this is super early in film. So this is proto-film.
Right.
Almost.
Like, give it another 10 years and they'll learn that instead of cutting to the same shot, maybe cut to like a reaction shot and then cut back to the wide shot.
I want to say that was discovered in Birth of a Nation, but I am not certain.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that's just a whole tangent we've already had. Regardless, they did all of this basically in one shot, and that is incredible for the time period. That had to have been very stressful too, considering how many people had to work on the marionette, and how the people in front of the marionette, who the operators could not see, had to get their timing down right. And just the sheer danger of being eaten by the thing. I'm certain that was not the safest thing in the world. But the thing genuinely does act like a giant monster, and for the very first giant monster, we could have done a lot worse.
Yeah, that is true. You know, it's funny you should mention it. We might be mistaken. There might be other short films and silent films that have giant monster elements before this one. But, again, a lot of those didn't really feel much like characters or really had much effort behind them. Many times they'd just be human beings who'd be huge or just bizarre visual effects that just happen to have a large head in a box or something like that. This, however, is an actual physical, coherent character as opposed to a lot of those other past examples. And, you know, you even knowing it's a very bare bones narrative, you get the sense that this creature has a history or a backstory, that it's been there for a long time, which is something a lot of other pre-Conquest of the Pole giant monsters in cinema were completely lacking. This character feels more solid, so to speak, in the concept.
That, and also it acts more like a giant monster. It gets attacked, and it is a menace. Like, I would have a hard time genuinely calling the scorpion a giant monster because it is only briefly a thing, and it is more of a gag than it isn't.
Yeah, very similar to what I just said with all, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's...
I am reiterating your points with an example from the movie itself. With this thing, this is an actual part of the film. This is like an obstacle our heroes have to get around, and it really is just a truncated giant monster plot. Only it throws up its victim. Oh, hey, it's an Attack on Titan.
Da 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 dun.
Could you imagine this movie ending with all those characters putting like 3-dimensional gear and then just fighting the giant
in the snow? They're like shooting off the different glaciers and icebergs, and then the guy that the Titan swallows up, he ends up turning into a Titan himself and bursts out of the snow giant.
I don't know what you're referring to. I can't imagine what that would be a reference.
I was going to say, because this movie was made in 1912, it wouldn't be as cool as Andres is saying it will be. So just be all these cast members are just on ropes swinging in front of this giant, just swinging swords all over the place, and the other giant is just another marionette.
Yeah, everyone's on bungee cords.
Yeah.
In the background, we have some dolls swinging on rope.
If somebody has the special effects in the budget, please make a very short, silent version of Attack on Titan using those same effect techniques. That would be both wonderful and terrible at the same time.
It'd probably be a better movie than the actual films themselves.
Oh.
Yeah, oh, Jesus Christ, those are giant monster movies.
A preview of what's to come.
That's a bridge for another day. We'll get to that later. We're talking about both the movies together, because screw you if we don't. That's for the future! For right now, Andres, what did you think of the granddaddy of all monsters?
Let's see. As the granddaddy of all monsters, I think the the ice giant, is a really impressive creation on a technical level and even on an artistic level. It's very goofy, very cartoonish. It's very of the times, and I think that's what keeps it unique among giant monsters. Especially, I'm not too thrilled. When I first saw the monster, I wasn't too thrilled about how disproportionate the head was compared to the rest of the body, and especially the arms. Yeah. But again, it kind of adds to a little bit of that 1910s charm, and so for the 3 minutes that it was on screen, I thought it was a very cool and amusing creation to watch.
You know, it's amusing to me because its screen time is pretty much proportional to what giant monsters would usually get in films.
Mm-hmm. So, like, literally, like 1/10 of the runtime.
Yep. Yep. For better or for worse.
Them production budgets ain't cheap.
No.
This movie truly was ahead of its time. It saw all the fads and all the trends to come.
And some trends that would come back in terrible ways.
Aye.
But hey, you know, whatever. That's not its fault. That's America's fault.
How do you say, Andres?
What?
America. Right. I'm not even going to try further.
America.
So you gotta pretend like you're losing brain cells by the second. While feeling overly way too confident for your own well-being.
But that's just how Raf normally is. How's he supposed to pretend?
So you see, you're already halfway there.
This is
I mean, he's already there. He's
Shut up!
Entrenched.
He just needs to accept it.
Shut up! This is my show. I can cry if I want to.
Okay.
It's my show, and I cry if I want to.
Is this how Kevin Smith feels on Hollywood Babylon? Wait,
I hope
pretty
so.
Much. Except he actually accepts the fact that he's a horrible artist / filmmaker.
You know, better comparison. I'm the giant of the snows, and you guys are just falling snowballs at me right now in my giant nose.
So which one of us did you eat?
Yes.
Whichever one he hates more.
Raf, you don't know how that joke works. You understand that it is a joke, and I appreciate that. I applaud the fact that you understand that it is a concept.
Thank you.
But Raf, that is not how the joke works.
I ate both of you because I hate you Oh, wait, no. I ate Jesse because I hate you the most.
See, Andres, that's how I saved your life.
And I actually pay him. So he needs me alive.
Right. For now.
So, yeah. That's a movie made 100 years ago.
Yep.
Oh.
At the end of the day, it was a film.
104 years ago. Jesus Christ, movies have been around for a while.
Yeah, it is amazing. So, it's an important movie. We respect it. We like it, but at the same time... What? What's so funny?
We respect it. That's adorable.
We at least respect it. We at least respect it more than we respect each other.
Okay, yeah, that is true. So you guys suck, by the way. I love you. I love you, but you suck. So there you...
Yet again, not until you buy me dinner.
I honestly don't know who's coming off more, fancy, so to speak, in this conversation of ours.
I don't care. I just want food. You don't feed me.
Do you want black anus? I'm Angus, or what? After the show.
And you have won the race, Raf. Good job. A+.
See, I won in the end. And when I mean I won, I lost.
Yeah, you definitely won the end.
Yes. Oh.
And speaking of the end,
Da-da-da-da-da.
Wow. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is a preview of what's to come. We got 200 or more episodes to come, unless we all die of our respective drug habits.
Hollywood, stop making monster movies.
Yes, please. It's like we've already gotten...
Especially monster movies about Power Rangers.
I was about to make that same joke.
In fact, abort the one you have.
Okay, so with that says, this was the first true episode of Review All Monsters.
We're sorry.
Technically the third one. I want to thank Andres, aka KaijuNoir, and Jesse, also known as Burkion, for being my co-hosts on the show. And do you guys want to plug anything before we end today, or no?
Sure, yeah. So let's see. So you can check out my channel, KaijuNoir. That's KaijuNoir. You can also, for movie reviews, TV reviews, podcasts, and all that stuff that I mentioned before. You can also check me out on Zazubar's channel, Zazubaar, where you will find me on several of his reviews, collaborative reviews, as well as being a regular guest, co-host on the Sons of Serizawa podcast. If you're a fan of Kevin Smith's podcasts like Smodcast or Hollywood Babylon, where you just see a bunch of geeks just nerd out and talk about random stuff, then you can check that out as well. Outside of that, you can also find me on my two of my Facebook pages, one being the Sons of Serizawa Facebook homepage, as well as a Facebook group called Toku Legion, where you can meet other, if you happen to be a fan of Japanese special effects productions, you're sure to find many people who also share similar interests to discuss with. And finally, you can also check me out on Instagram, where you can find a lot of the art that I use in my channel, a lot of it being colored by Raf here. And you can also check out a bunch of other stuff that I would post on Instagram as well.
Okay, and I am Enshohma. My name is spelled Enshohma. Again, it's Enshohma.
Raf, they can pause it and go back.
Indeed, and also you're watching this on my account, so why the hell? I have a DeviantArt page, also under Enshohma. My official Facebook page is Enshohma Lives. That has the most updates, even though a lot of it is flivorous stuff. I, of course, have the YouTube channel you're on right now. I also have a blog, Enshohma's Corner, at blogspot.com. And I have done artwork for the internet reviewer Brendan Tenold, who has definitely gained a strong cult following. And I've done work for KaijuNoir here, and if things go well, I might have a third guy I'll be doing artwork for. So I also have a comic book series, Fleabin Sisters, in the work that will be coming out pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. So, and anything you need to plug, Mr. Jesse, sir?
No.
Okay, so that was the third episode of Review All Monsters. I want to thank you very much for spending this time with us. So that's all. Goodbye, and you guys say goodbye too.
Until next time, everybody, take care.
Remember, nobody likes you. Nobody.
And nothing of value was ever made.
Everyone's gonna die eventually.
Hopefully sooner than later.
So, who wants Black Angus?
Press the button, Raf.
Alright, fine.